In Batoche, on the shores of the South Saskatchewan River, the Métis made their last stand against the Canadian government. Under the leadership of Louis Riel and Gabriel Dumont, they would fight an army and lose. Dispersed, landless. Many expected the Métis would simply assimilate and disappear. Denied treaty land, they were forced to settle in government-owned ditches beside highways. They became known as the road allowance people. With no rights to land or education, the Métis were poorer than everyone in Canada, and by 1941, they were even taken off the census. I'm working on my master's degree at the University of Regina, focused on Métis identity. Most of the history books stop with the execution of Riel, as if the Métis really did disappear after that. Some people are writing about what happened after 1885, and I want to contribute. But first I need to find out where the Métis went, and why it's been so easy for many of us to repress our heritage.
The Métis, where did the Métis go from 1885 to 1995, you know? Okay, Métis history, you ready?
John Lajmodiere is one of my guides. He teaches Aboriginal awareness seminars outlining Indian and Métis history. He also publishes an Aboriginal newspaper, Eagle Feather News. John comes from the Métis equivalent of royalty. The Lajmodieres were one of the Red River Colony's oldest and most prominent families, a family even Louis Riel married into.
My dad dropped hints, you know, I didn't get the full story, but he told me that, you know, we're related to Louis Riel. He sometimes seemed to, he was very proud of it, obviously, but sometimes he seemed to minimize it. We got a little bit of Métis blood sometimes, he'd say, and I didn't really understand the concept. Learned about it in grade school. Grade 6, 7, whenever you take Western Canadian history. And that was a little disturbing because it wasn't the same stories that I heard from the family. The history books back then were a little bit more unbalanced, for lack of a better word. And Louis came off as this traitorous, treasonous, crazy half-breed, right? So that was all well and good when we learned about it, and you know, it became a topic. And I told my friends, "Hey guys, you know, I'm related to this Louis Riel. He's my cousin, and I'm Métis." And the reaction was instant and negative. You know, I was called bad words like you know, effing wagon burner was the first things I remember my friends saying. And then, you know, the traitor and treason kind of talk. So after that, I wasn't Métis anymore at all. I was a kid with a funny long French name.
It would be a long time before John would reveal his Métis heritage to anyone outside of his family again. He says he was assimilated. In university, that all changed when a professor convinced him to be proud. It was high time to pull his Métis sash back out of the attic.
Back in the old days, when people come out of the woods, there'd be a big party. Someone's house, fiddles, jigging, drinking, fighting. And this was, you could use this sort of as a signal, okay? If you were on the right side, it meant that, you know, you were taken, okay? If you were on the left side, that meant that maybe, you know, you weren't taken, you were looking, okay? and if you weren't in the middle, you might have been in the woods just a little too long, if you know what I'm saying, okay? By denying it, I guess, is sort of giving me more of a fervor today to get the word out or to create positive atmosphere. I learned more about the Treaty of Versailles and the Treaty of Ghent in grade school than I did about Treaty 6, which set out the medicine chest provision, so that meant that First Nations in this area got access to health care. I learned more about a treaty way on the other side of the earth, way regarding different nations, than what set up the relationship with the First Nations and the Government of Canada, or the Manitoba Act that set out the relationship between the Métis and the Government of Canada. We got to get that into the schools. And people don't understand Aboriginal issues. They don't understand. So we take that and we say, here's what happened. Here's the treaties. Here's how they were created. Good deal. Here's how they were implemented. Indian Act, bad deal. Here's the end result of colonialism. Here's what happened to the Métis people. Here's how we were dispersed through racism and violence and armies, and then here's how we all of a sudden in the 60s and 70s started getting organized again. And I say all that lost time in there, we weren't building farms or building family wealth or building education. We were fighting to survive.
But the history speaks to all of that. I mean, we know better now how the Métis were aggrieved. We have better evidence, we have better documentation, and we have people that not only read about it, but can react to it.
Murray Hamilton likes what he sees in the new wave of Métis activists. 30 years ago, he was on the front lines of the burgeoning Métis political scene. Métis leaders had tried to unite the people for years, but it took the civil rights era to make the politics popular.
There was a lot of dissension at that time about living conditions, and I mean, you had a tremendous poverty in Métis communities in the north and the rural areas. You had a dropout rate in the school system of 95%. You didn't have any Métis people graduating from university. You know, very few Métis people in positions of influence anywhere. So it was a situation that was just ripe to explode.
You had segregated residential schools built for Indians, run by white people. This is segregation. This is apartheid. The principle behind this kind of rule is that all men are not created equal. I think it is a very great tragedy, not only to the native people, but to all of Canada, that an apartheid system should have been allowed to come into existence and should have existed over these 80 years or more.
Howard Adams was the Métis radical of the 60s and 70s. Academic and activist, he believed civil disobedience and challenging the system were the only ways to force change. His confrontational approach pushed the Métis and their issues into the headlines. The Métis got government money for education, housing, and employment programs, and by 1982 they were finally recognized as a distinct Aboriginal people in Canada's Constitution. But they still have not received compensation for lost land. Social conditions have improved, but many of the civil rights battles Adams and his followers began are still being fought.
If you're a Métis person, you have no choice. I think if you're an Aboriginal person in this country, or any minority, Jewish, or even if you're a woman, you have no choice but to be political. I hear people say that, oh, I don't like politics. I'm apolitical. Quite frankly, I don't understand people like that. I mean, everything you do is political. I mean, everything that affects your life is political. Being Métis means. Whether you like it or not, just about every facet of your life is political.
The politics of Métis history are about land that was stolen and a leader that was hung. More than 100 years ago, here on the grounds of Regina's Royal Canadian Mounted Police, a leader that shares his name with John Lagimodiere's infant son.
My mom said, "Oh, he's going to get beat up." I said, "Well, probably not anymore. I think it's cool." We named him Riel just to I guess pay respect and honor to my family's development of the you can't really hide it now that he's Riel. I intend he'll grow up learning a whole lot more about our ancestry, obviously, now that I have that knowledge than I ever did. So he'll be that much stronger, that much further ahead.